1965 was not just another year in cinema. It was a collision of spectacle and soul. A moment when grand epics stood shoulder to shoulder with intimate psychological revolutions. Studios gambled on scale, while auteurs whispered truths that echoed louder than explosions. Audiences didn't just watch films, they stepped into entire worlds, lush, dangerous, unforgettable. Music soared across mountains, while love was tested against the brutality of history. Icons were born, boundaries shattered, and genres quietly reinvented. Behind every frame lay ambition, risk, and an unrelenting desire to be timeless. These are not just films, they are cinematic landmarks that still shape the language of storytelling today. The Sound of Music, 1965. From the very first sweeping aerial shot over the Austrian Alps, The Sound of Music invites the audience into a world where nature itself seems to sing, where the wind carries melodies, and where innocence collides with the encroaching shadow of political darkness, creating an emotional duality that defines the film's enduring power. Directed by Robert Wise, the film is not merely a musical, it is a meticulously crafted emotional experience that balances light-hearted joy with underlying tension, anchored by Julie Andrews' luminous portrayal of Maria, a spirited novice whose defiance of rigid conformity transforms not only a fractured family but also the emotional landscape of the audience. Christopher Plummer's Captain Von Trapp, initially portrayed as cold and authoritarian, gradually reveals layers of grief, pride, and vulnerability, making his transformation one of the film's most compelling arcs. The narrative unfolds with an almost rhythmic precision, where each song is not an interruption but an extension of character psychology, whether it's the playful innocence of Do Re Mi, or the aching defiance embedded within Edelweiss, a song that subtly becomes a symbol of resistance against the rise of Nazism. Visually, the film is a triumph of classical Hollywood cinematography, with Ted D. McCord's camera work capturing not just landscapes but emotional states, using wide compositions to reflect freedom and tighter framing to suggest constraint, particularly as the political tension intensifies. The production itself was an ambitious undertaking, shot on location in Salzburg, which added authenticity but also logistical challenges, including unpredictable weather conditions that frequently disrupted schedules. The film's score, composed by Richard Rodgers with lyrics by Oscar Hammerstein II, functions as both narrative propulsion and emotional architecture, weaving seamlessly into the story while leaving an indelible cultural imprint. Financially, The Sound of Music became a phenomenon, produced on a budget of approximately $8.2 million and grossing over $286 million worldwide, making it one of the highest-grossing films of its time, a success that reshaped studio confidence in large-scale musicals. Critics were initially divided, with some dismissing its sentimentality, yet audiences embraced it wholeheartedly, leading to its triumph at the Academy Awards, where it won 5 Oscars, including Best Picture and Best Director. Over time, its reputation has only grown, evolving from a commercial success into a cultural institution, studied not only for its artistry but for its ability to merge entertainment with subtle historical reflection. The film's legacy extends far beyond cinema, influencing stage revivals, global tourism in Salzburg, and even the way musicals are structured in contemporary filmmaking. In a world increasingly drawn to cynicism, The Sound of Music remains a testament to sincerity, resilience, and the quiet power of human connection, reminding viewers that even in the face of darkness, music and hope can endure. Cat Ballou, 1965. The film opens on a dusty frontier where justice feels like a rumor rather than a reality, and survival depends less on morality than on timing, deception, and the unpredictable alliances forged in desperation, immediately establishing Cat Ballou as a Western that refuses to be confined by the genre's traditional rigidity, instead blending satire, musical storytelling, and sharp character-driven humor into a narrative that feels both subversive and deeply rooted in American mythmaking. Directed by Elliot Silverstein, the film follows Jane Fonda's Catherine "Cat" Ballou, a seemingly refined schoolteacher whose return to her hometown becomes a descent into chaos after the murder of her father, pushing her into a transformation that is as psychological as it is narrative, evolving from innocence into calculated rebellion. Fonda's performance anchors the film with a delicate balance of vulnerability and determination, allowing the audience to witness not just her external actions but the internal conflict that shapes her decisions, making her journey compelling beyond its comedic surface. Opposite her, Lee Marvin delivers one of the most remarkable performances of his career, embodying dual roles that showcase both menace and absurdity, particularly as the drunken gunslinger Kid Shalene, whose unpredictable nature injects both humor and tension into the story. Marvin's portrayal is not merely comedic, it is layered with a subtle commentary on the fading archetype of the Western hero, presenting a figure who is both a relic and a parody of the genre's traditional masculinity. The film's narrative structure is further enriched by its use of musical interludes, performed by Nat King Cole and Stubby Kaye, who function as a Greek chorus, guiding the audience through the story with a blend of irony and sincerity, an unconventional device that reinforces the film's hybrid identity. Visually, Cat Ballou embraces the aesthetics of the Western while simultaneously undermining them, with cinematography by Joseph F. Byrock capturing expansive landscapes that contrast with the absurdity of the events unfolding within them, creating a visual tension that mirrors the film's tonal complexity. The production faced challenges in balancing its comedic elements with the expectations of a Western audience, requiring careful calibration to ensure that humor did not overshadow narrative coherence. With a modest budget of approximately $3.5 million, the film exceeded expectations at the box office, grossing over $20 million and proving that audiences were receptive to genre experimentation when executed with confidence and creativity. Critically, the film was met with enthusiasm, particularly for Marvin's performance, which earned him the Academy Award for Best Actor, a recognition that underscored the film's ability to transcend its comedic framework and deliver performances of genuine depth. Its success also highlighted a broader shift within the Western genre during the 1960s, as filmmakers began to explore more nuanced and self-aware approaches to storytelling, reflecting changing cultural attitudes toward heroism, morality, and authority. While not without its controversies, some critics questioned its tonal shifts and departure from traditional Western conventions. Cat Ballou ultimately emerged as a defining example of genre reinvention. Over time, its legacy has only strengthened, influencing a generation of filmmakers who sought to blend comedy with traditionally serious genres, paving the way for works that challenge audience expectations while remaining accessible. The film's enduring appeal lies in its ability to entertain while subtly deconstructing the myths it portrays, offering a narrative that is as thoughtful as it is engaging, and ensuring its place as one of the most distinctive and innovative films of 1965. Dr. Zhivago, 1965. Dr. Zhivago does not begin as a film, it unfolds like a memory, vast and haunting, stretching across snow-covered landscapes and decades of political upheaval, immersing the viewer in a Russia torn apart by revolution while quietly observing the fragile persistence of love within chaos. Directed by David Lean, a master of epic storytelling, the film transforms Boris Pasternak's novel into a sweeping cinematic canvas where personal longing and historical inevitability are inseparably intertwined. Omar Sharif's portrayal of Yuri Zhivago is defined by restraint and introspection, a man caught between duty and desire, whose poetic sensibility becomes both his refuge and his burden. Opposite him, Julie Christie's Lara radiates a complex blend of vulnerability and strength, embodying a character shaped by circumstance yet driven by an almost defiant emotional clarity. Their relationship is not presented as a conventional romance but as an inevitable convergence of souls in a world determined to keep them apart. Lean's direction is characterized by an extraordinary command of scale and detail, where each frame feels deliberate, from the frozen expanses that symbolize emotional isolation to the intimate interiors that capture fleeting moments of warmth. Freddie Young's cinematography is nothing short of breathtaking, utilizing light and shadow to create a visual language that mirrors the narrative's emotional depth, particularly in sequences where the harshness of winter becomes a metaphor for both political oppression and personal despair. Maurice Jarre's iconic score, especially the recurring Lara's theme, is integral to the film's identity, functioning almost as an emotional narrator that bridges time, memory, and longing, embedding itself in the audience's consciousness long after the film concludes. The production of Dr. Zhivago was as monumental as its narrative, with shooting locations spanning Spain and Finland due to restrictions in the Soviet Union, requiring elaborate set designs to recreate Russian landscapes with convincing authenticity. The film's budget, estimated at around $11 million, reflected its ambitious scope, yet its eventual box office success far exceeded expectations, grossing over $111 million and becoming one of the highest-grossing films of all time when adjusted for inflation. Upon release, critical reception was mixed, with some reviewers criticizing its length and emotional tone, but audiences responded with overwhelming enthusiasm, drawn to its sweeping romance and visual grandeur. The Academy Awards recognized its technical excellence, awarding it 5 Oscars, including Best Cinematography and Best Original Score. Beyond its immediate success, Dr. Zhivago occupies a unique place in cinematic history, often discussed as both a triumph of epic filmmaking and a deeply personal narrative hidden within that scale. It reflects not only the turbulence of the Russian Revolution but also universal themes of identity, displacement, and the enduring power of love in the face of insurmountable odds. Over time, its reputation has grown, with modern audiences appreciating its deliberate pacing and emotional nuance, qualities that stand in stark contrast to contemporary filmmaking trends. The film's influence can be seen in countless historical epics that attempt to balance spectacle with intimacy, though few achieve the same level of harmony. Ultimately, Dr. Zhivago is not just a story of 2 lovers separated by circumstance. It is a meditation on time, memory, and the quiet tragedies that define human existence, ensuring its place as one of the most profound cinematic achievements of its era. Thunderball, 1965. The film opens beneath the surface of the ocean, where silence is deceptive and danger moves with calculated precision, immediately signaling that Thunderball is not merely another espionage thriller but an escalation, a bold expansion of scale, spectacle, and ambition within the James Bond universe, redefining what audiences expected from the franchise at a time when cinematic competition demanded innovation. Directed by Terrence Young, who had already helped shape the early identity of the Bond series, this 4th installment starring Sean Connery as 007 presents a narrative rooted in Cold War anxieties yet elevated through an almost operatic sense of adventure, as the criminal organization Spectre executes a daring plan to hijack nuclear warheads and hold the world hostage. Connery's performance reflects a matured Bond, less reliant on charm alone and more grounded in a quiet confidence, balancing charisma with a subtle weariness that hints at the psychological toll of his profession, while still delivering the iconic wit that defined the character. The film's most striking achievement lies in its visual ambition, particularly its underwater sequences, which were unprecedented at the time and required groundbreaking technical innovation. Cinematographer Ted Moore captures these extended aquatic scenes with remarkable clarity and choreography, transforming potential limitations into a mesmerizing visual language where combat unfolds in slow, almost balletic movements, creating tension through spatial awareness rather than rapid editing. The Bahamas setting provides a vibrant contrast between sunlit luxury and lurking danger, reinforcing the duality at the heart of Bond's world. John Barry's score further amplifies this atmosphere, blending sweeping orchestration with a sense of urgency that underscores both the grandeur and peril of the narrative. Behind the scenes, Thunderball was one of the most expensive Bond films up to that point, with a budget estimated at $9 million, reflecting its technical demands and elaborate set pieces, including underwater rigs and extensive location shooting. Production was not without complications, as legal disputes surrounding the story's rights created lingering tensions that would later resurface in franchise history. Despite these challenges, the film achieved massive commercial success, grossing over $141 million worldwide, solidifying Bond as a global cinematic phenomenon and proving that audiences were eager for larger-than-life storytelling that pushed technical boundaries. Critically, the film received generally positive reviews, with praise directed toward its action sequences and Connery's performance, though some critics noted its pacing, particularly during the prolonged underwater scenes, which, while visually impressive, tested conventional narrative rhythm. Nevertheless, Thunderball earned an Academy Award for Best Visual Effects, recognizing its technical innovation and influence on future action filmmaking. Its legacy extends beyond its immediate success, as it set a precedent for spectacle-driven narratives within the spy genre, influencing not only subsequent Bond films but also the broader landscape of blockbuster cinema. Culturally, Thunderball represents a moment when cinema began to fully embrace the possibilities of immersive spectacle, merging technology with storytelling in ways that felt both novel and exhilarating. It reinforced Bond's position as a symbol of sophistication and danger, while also expanding the franchise's visual vocabulary, ensuring that each subsequent installment would be measured against the ambitious standard it established. Even decades later, its underwater sequences remain iconic, studied for their ingenuity and impact, reminding audiences that innovation often emerges from the willingness to venture into uncharted depths, both literally and creatively. The Great Race, 1965. From its exuberant opening moments, The Great Race bursts onto the screen with a sense of playful grandeur, inviting audiences into a world where adventure is infused with humor and where the spirit of competition becomes a canvas for spectacle, satire, and cinematic excess, all orchestrated under the direction of Blake Edwards, whose vision transforms a simple cross-continental race into an elaborate homage to silent-era comedy and early adventure serials. At its core, the film is a whimsical narrative centered on the rivalry between the impeccably virtuous Leslie Gallant III, portrayed with charming sincerity by Tony Curtis, and the flamboyantly villainous Professor Fate, brought to life with gleeful theatricality by Jack Lemmon, whose dual-role performance showcases a remarkable range of comedic timing and physical expression. Their journey from New York to Paris is less about the destination and more about the absurdly inventive obstacles encountered along the way, each sequence crafted to escalate both the humor and the scale of the production. Visually, the film is a lavish spectacle, with cinematography by Russell Harlan capturing a wide array of environments, from icy landscapes to desert expanses, each meticulously designed to enhance the sense of adventure while providing a backdrop for the film's elaborate set pieces. The production design is particularly noteworthy, reflecting an almost obsessive attention to detail that transforms every location into a stylized representation of early 20th century exploration, blending historical inspiration with comedic exaggeration. Perhaps the most iconic sequence, the pie fight, stands as a testament to Edwards' commitment to spectacle, involving thousands of pies and an extraordinary level of logistical coordination, resulting in a scene that has since become one of the most celebrated moments in comedy film history. Henry Mancini's score complements the film's tone with a lively and dynamic composition that underscores both the excitement and absurdity of the narrative, seamlessly integrating with the visual rhythm to create a cohesive cinematic experience. The film's budget, estimated at $12 million, made it one of the most expensive comedies of its time, a financial risk that reflected the studio's confidence in Edwards' vision but also heightened expectations for commercial success. Upon release, The Great Race performed moderately at the box office, earning around $22 million, a respectable figure but one that fell short of its ambitious scale, leading to mixed critical reception, with some praising its visual inventiveness while others criticized its length and episodic structure. Despite this initial response, the film has undergone a significant reevaluation over time, with modern audiences and critics recognizing its unique blend of homage and innovation, as well as its influence on subsequent adventure comedies that seek to balance narrative with spectacle. Jack Lemmon's performance, in particular, has been widely celebrated, earning him a Golden Globe nomination and solidifying his reputation as one of the era's most versatile actors. The film also reflects broader cultural themes of the 1960s, including a fascination with progress, exploration, and the romanticized notion of competition, all filtered through a comedic lens that both celebrates and gently satirizes these ideals. Ultimately, The Great Race stands as a bold experiment in cinematic storytelling, one that embraces excess as a virtue and transforms it into a source of entertainment, challenging conventional boundaries between genres while paying tribute to the history of film itself. Its legacy lies not only in its memorable sequences but in its willingness to take risks, to push the limits of what a comedy could achieve in terms of scale and ambition, ensuring its place as a distinctive and enduring entry in the landscape of 1960s cinema. Darling, 1965. Darling begins not with spectacle, but with an intimacy that feels almost intrusive, as though the audience has been granted access to the private ambitions and quiet disillusionments of a generation navigating the rapidly shifting cultural landscape of 1960s London, immediately immersing viewers in a world defined by glamour, ambition, and the fragile pursuit of identity within an increasingly superficial society. Directed by John Schlesinger, the film is a piercing exploration of fame and emptiness, anchored by Julie Christie's unforgettable portrayal of Diana Scott, a model and aspiring actress whose ascent through the social and professional hierarchies of London becomes both a triumph and a cautionary tale. Christie's performance is remarkable in its complexity, capturing the contradictions of a character who is simultaneously confident and uncertain, driven and adrift, embodying the paradox of a woman who achieves everything she desires only to discover the hollowness beneath it. The narrative unfolds with a deliberate pacing that mirrors Diana's journey, moving through a series of relationships and opportunities that gradually reveal the transactional nature of the world she inhabits, where personal connections are often secondary to social advancement. Dirk Bogarde's Robert Gold, a journalist who becomes entangled in Diana's life, serves as both a participant and an observer, his performance imbued with a quiet melancholy that reflects the broader disillusionment of the era. Lawrence Harvey's Miles Brand adds another layer to the film's exploration of ambition, representing a more cynical approach to success, further highlighting the moral ambiguities that define the character's choices. Cinematographically, Darling employs a style that feels both polished and raw, with Kenneth Higgins' black and white photography capturing the stark contrasts between public image and private reality, using light and shadow to emphasize the emotional distance between characters even in moments of apparent intimacy. The film's visual language is complemented by its restrained use of music, allowing silence and ambient sound to play a significant role in shaping the audience's experience, reinforcing the sense of isolation that permeates the narrative. Behind the scenes, the production benefited from its relatively modest budget, which encouraged a focus on character and atmosphere rather than spectacle, aligning with the emerging trends of British New Wave cinema. Upon its release, Darling was met with critical acclaim, praised for its incisive commentary and powerful performances, particularly Christie's, which earned her the Academy Award for Best Actress, solidifying her status as one of the defining talents of her generation. The film also received multiple nominations, including Best Picture, reflecting its impact within the industry. Commercially, it performed well, resonating with audiences who recognized its portrayal of contemporary society, even as it challenged them to confront uncomfortable truths about ambition and identity. Culturally, Darling occupies a significant place within the context of 1960s cinema, capturing the essence of a moment when traditional values were being questioned and redefined, particularly in relation to gender roles and the nature of success. Its exploration of media influence, celebrity culture, and personal authenticity feels strikingly relevant even decades later, underscoring its enduring significance. While some critics have noted its occasionally episodic structure, the film's thematic cohesion and emotional resonance ensure its lasting impact. Ultimately, Darling is not merely a story about a woman's rise to fame. It is a reflection on the cost of that rise, a meditation on the tension between external success and internal fulfillment, and a powerful reminder that the pursuit of identity in a world driven by appearances can lead to both triumph and profound isolation, securing its place as one of the most insightful and enduring films of its time. Repulsion, 1965. The film opens in unsettling stillness, where silence is not peace but pressure, where the walls themselves seem to breathe with an unspoken menace, immediately immersing the viewer in a psychological landscape that feels less like a physical space and more like an extension of a fractured mind, signaling that Repulsion is not simply a narrative to be followed but an experience to be endured. Directed by Roman Polanski in his first English-language feature, the film is a masterclass in psychological horror, stripping away conventional genre devices to focus on the slow, suffocating unraveling of its protagonist, Carol Ledoux, portrayed with haunting precision by Catherine Deneuve. Her performance is defined by restraint, an almost eerie stillness that gradually gives way to subtle shifts in expression and behavior, allowing the audience to witness her descent not through overt dramatics but through an accumulation of small, disquieting details that build into overwhelming dread. The narrative itself is deceptively simple, following Carol as she remains alone in her London apartment while her sister is away, yet within this confined premise lies a profound exploration of isolation, repression, and the fragility of the human psyche. Polanski's direction transforms the apartment into a living entity, using spatial distortion, recurring visual motifs, and disorienting camera angles to blur the boundary between reality and hallucination, creating a sense of claustrophobia that intensifies with each passing moment. Gilbert Taylor's cinematography plays a crucial role in this transformation, employing stark black and white imagery to emphasize contrasts between light and shadow, while also utilizing deep focus and tight framing to trap the viewer within Carol's perspective, making her psychological deterioration feel inescapably intimate. Sound design in Repulsion is equally instrumental in shaping its atmosphere, with the absence of traditional musical scoring allowing ambient noises, ticking clocks, distant footsteps, the cracking of walls, to take on an almost oppressive significance, amplifying the tension without relying on conventional cues. This minimalist approach reflects Polanski's broader creative vision, which prioritizes psychological authenticity over spectacle, resulting in a film that is as intellectually engaging as it is viscerally unsettling. The production itself was relatively modest, with a budget of approximately £65,000, yet its limitations became strengths, forcing a focus on atmosphere, performance, and innovative visual storytelling. Upon its release, Repulsion received critical acclaim, particularly for its originality and Deneuve's performance, though its disturbing content also sparked controversy, with some viewers and critics unsettled by its unflinching portrayal of mental disintegration and implied violence. Despite this, the film achieved commercial success, proving that audiences were willing to engage with more challenging and unconventional narratives. It also garnered several awards, including the Silver Bear for Best Director at the Berlin International Film Festival, solidifying Polanski's reputation as a filmmaker of exceptional vision. Culturally, Repulsion represents a pivotal moment in the evolution of horror cinema, shifting the focus from external threats to internal turmoil, influencing a generation of filmmakers who sought to explore fear through psychological realism rather than supernatural elements. Its legacy can be seen in countless films that adopt similar approaches to character and atmosphere, though few achieve the same level of precision and impact. Over time, it has been recognized not only as a landmark in horror but as a profound study of alienation and identity, themes that remain deeply relevant in contemporary society. Ultimately, Repulsion endures because it refuses to offer comfort or resolution, instead confronting the audience with the unsettling reality that the most terrifying landscapes are often those that exist within the mind, making it one of the most haunting and intellectually rigorous films of its era. The Collector, 1965. From its opening moments, The Collector establishes an atmosphere of quiet unease, where ordinary settings are imbued with an almost imperceptible tension, suggesting that beneath the surface of normality lies something deeply unsettling, a thematic foundation that director William Wyler meticulously develops into a psychological drama of extraordinary intensity. Adapted from John Fowles' novel, the film presents a chilling exploration of obsession and control through the story of Frederick Clegg, portrayed by Terence Stamp, a socially isolated man whose fascination with a young art student, Miranda Gray, played by Samantha Eggar, evolves into a disturbing act of captivity. Stamp's performance is remarkable in its subtlety, avoiding overt villainy in favor of a restrained, almost polite demeanor that makes his actions all the more disconcerting, while Eggar delivers a powerful portrayal of resilience and vulnerability, capturing the emotional complexity of a character trapped in both physical and psychological confinement. The narrative unfolds with a deliberate pacing that mirrors the psychological dynamics between captor and captive, allowing the audience to observe the shifting power balance as Miranda attempts to assert her autonomy within an environment designed to strip it away. Wyler's direction emphasizes this tension through careful composition and framing, often positioning characters within confined spaces that visually reinforce their emotional states, creating a sense of intimacy that is both compelling and deeply uncomfortable. Robert Surtees' cinematography further enhances this effect, using muted color palettes and controlled lighting to establish a visual tone that is understated yet profoundly impactful, reflecting the film's focus on character rather than spectacle. Music in The Collector is used sparingly, with Maurice Jarre's score providing subtle emotional undercurrents without overwhelming the narrative, allowing silence and dialogue to carry the weight of the story. The production faced unique challenges, particularly in maintaining the film's tension within a largely confined setting, requiring a strong emphasis on performance and direction to sustain audience engagement. With a budget of approximately $4 million, the film achieved moderate commercial success, though its impact was felt more strongly in critical circles, where it was praised for its psychological depth and uncompromising approach to its subject matter. Upon release, The Collector received widespread acclaim, earning both Stamp and Edgar nominations for the Academy Award for Best Actor and Best Actress, respectively, an unusual achievement for a film of its genre, underscoring the strength of its performances. However, its subject matter also sparked controversy, with some critics and audiences disturbed by its portrayal of captivity and the moral ambiguity of its characters, raising questions about the boundaries of cinematic storytelling and the responsibilities of filmmakers in depicting such themes. In terms of cultural and historical relevance, The Collector reflects broader societal anxieties of the 1960s, particularly concerning isolation, identity, and the darker aspects of human behavior that often remain hidden beneath social norms. Its influence extends into modern psychological thrillers, many of which draw upon its exploration of character-driven tension and moral complexity. Over time, the film has been re-evaluated as a pioneering work within its genre, recognized for its ability to provoke thought and discomfort in equal measure. Ultimately, The Collector endures not because it offers answers, but because it raises questions about power, empathy, and the limits of human understanding, challenging audiences to confront the unsettling possibility that the most disturbing realities are often those that exist within the boundaries of ordinary life, making it one of the most compelling and thought-provoking films of 1965. Bunny Lake is Missing, 1965. The film begins with an absence, a child who should be present but isn't, and from that void emerges a slow-burning psychological labyrinth that immediately destabilizes both the characters and the audience as Bunny Lake is Missing, directed by Otto Preminger, transforms a seemingly simple mystery into a deeply unsettling exploration of perception, trust, and identity. Set against the backdrop of London, the narrative follows and Lake, portrayed with fragile intensity by Carol Lindley, as she reports the disappearance of her young daughter from a nursery school, only to be confronted with a chilling possibility that the child may never have existed at all. This premise becomes the film's central psychological engine, forcing the audience to question not only the reality of the situation but also the reliability of and herself, creating a tension that is intellectual as much as it is emotional. Preminger's direction is marked by a deliberate restraint, allowing the story to unfold with a measured pace that gradually tightens its grip, avoiding sensationalism in favor of a more insidious form of suspense. Laurence Olivier's Inspector Newhouse serves as a grounding presence within the narrative, his calm, methodical approach contrasting sharply with Anne's escalating desperation, yet even his rationality cannot fully anchor the shifting reality of the situation. Keir Dullea portrayal of Anne's brother, Stephen, introduces an additional layer of ambiguity, his enigmatic demeanor and subtle unpredictability contributing to the film's pervasive sense of unease. Visually, Bunny Lake is Missing employs a stark black and white aesthetic, with cinematography by Dennis N. Coop utilizing shadow and composition to create a world that feels both familiar and disorienting, where ordinary spaces, schools, apartments, police stations, become arenas of psychological tension. Preminger's use of long takes and fluid camera movements enhances the sense of realism while simultaneously allowing the audience to remain immersed in the characters' perspectives, blurring the line between objective observation and subjective experience. The film's sound design further amplifies this effect, with minimal reliance on traditional scoring, instead using ambient noise and silence to heighten the atmosphere, making every pause feel loaded with meaning. The production of the film was relatively modest in scale, yet its execution required a careful balance between narrative clarity and ambiguity, a challenge that Preminger navigated with precision. With a budget that reflected its restrained approach, the film performed modestly at the box office, though it struggled to achieve the commercial success of more conventional thrillers of the time. Critical reception upon release was mixed, with some praising its depth and atmospheric tension, while others found its pacing and ambiguity challenging, reflecting the film's refusal to conform to audience expectations. Over time, however, Bunny Lake is Missing has undergone significant critical reassessment, now regarded as a sophisticated and ahead-of-its-time psychological thriller that anticipated many of the narrative techniques and thematic concerns that would later become prominent in the genre. Its exploration of unreliable perception, particularly in relation to female protagonists, resonates strongly within contemporary discussions of identity and mental health, highlighting its enduring relevance. While it did not receive major awards recognition, its influence can be traced in numerous films that prioritize psychological complexity over straightforward narrative resolution. Ultimately, the film's power lies in its ability to unsettle without overt spectacle, to create fear not through what is shown but through what is suggested, leaving the audience with lingering questions that extend beyond the final frame, ensuring its place as one of the most intriguing and psychologically rich films of 1965. 1965. Bursting onto the screen with a kinetic energy that feels almost anarchic, Help is less a conventional narrative film and more a vibrant cultural artifact, capturing a moment when music, cinema, and youth culture converged in a dazzling display of creativity and experimentation. As director Richard Lester once again collaborates with the Beatles to create a film that defies traditional storytelling in favor of a playful, self-aware approach that mirrors the band's own evolving identity. From its opening sequences, the film establishes a tone of irreverent humor and visual inventiveness, following the band as they become entangled in a bizarre plot involving a sacrificial ring and a fanatical cult. A premise that serves primarily as a framework for a series of inventive set pieces and musical performances rather than a tightly structured narrative. At the center of the film are John Lennon, Paul McCartney, George Harrison, and Ringo Starr, whose on-screen personas blend authenticity with exaggerated caricature, creating a dynamic that feels both spontaneous and carefully constructed. Ringo, in particular, becomes the focal point of the story, his understated comedic presence providing a grounding element amidst the film's escalating absurdity. Lester's direction embraces a fast-paced editing style, unconventional camera angles, and a willingness to break the fourth wall, techniques that not only enhance the film's comedic impact but also reflect the broader cultural shift toward more experimental forms of expression during the 1960s. Cinematographically, Help marks a departure from the black-and-white aesthetic of the band's previous film, A Hard Day's Night, embracing vibrant color to create a visually striking experience that complements the film's energetic tone. The use of diverse locations, including the Austrian Alps and the Bahamas, adds a sense of global adventure, while also providing a visually dynamic backdrop for the film's sequences. The production, however, was not without its challenges, as the band's increasing fame and hectic schedules required careful coordination, and their own evolving relationship with fame and creativity influenced their engagement with the project. Musically, the film is anchored by its soundtrack, featuring iconic songs such as Help, Ticket to Ride, and You've Got to Hide Your Love Away, each integrated into the narrative in a way that feels organic yet stylized, reinforcing the film's identity as both a cinematic and musical experience. The score, composed by Ken Thorne, further enhances the film's playful tone, incorporating orchestral arrangements of Beatles songs that add an additional layer of creativity. Financially, Help was a commercial success, benefiting from the immense global popularity of the Beatles, and solidifying their status not only as musical icons but as influential figures within the broader cultural landscape. Critical reception was generally positive, with praise directed toward its humor, style, and musical elements, though some critics noted its lack of narrative cohesion, a criticism that, in many ways, underscores the film's deliberate departure from conventional storytelling. Culturally, Help stands as a defining representation of the 1960s zeitgeist, encapsulating the spirit of experimentation, rebellion, and creative freedom that characterized the era. Its influence extends beyond cinema into music videos, advertising, and popular culture, where its stylistic innovations continue to resonate. While it did not receive major awards recognition, its legacy is evident in the countless works that have drawn inspiration from its unique blend of music and visual storytelling. Ultimately, Help is not a film that seeks to conform, it is a celebration of creativity in its most unrestrained form, a snapshot of a cultural moment that continues to inspire and entertain, ensuring its place as one of the most distinctive and influential films of 1965. These films were not just stories, they were statements carved into the history of cinema. Each frame carried ambition, each performance echoed with purpose. They challenged genres, reshaped narratives, and redefined what audiences could feel. From sweeping epics to intimate psychological depths, 1965 proved cinema had no limits. Decades may pass, but their impact refuses to fade. They continue to inspire, provoke, and captivate new generations. If these stories moved you, imagine what else cinema still has waiting to reveal. Like, comment, and subscribe, because the greatest films are never just watched, they are experienced.